I guess the real surprise here is just how much money we're talking about in terms of revenues to these governments in the Western Hemisphere and across the developing world. You're talking about hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars in terms of helping us balance our books and helping those governments as well. So I think civil society, if it was really focused on just how much money you're talking about here, would be bolt upright in terms of trying to figure out a structure in which to capture this information in order to try to capture the revenue flows back to the governments related to this. So the World Customs Organization, is that the entity that we should consider maybe the platform for enforcement if we were to work internationally, or is it the OECD? Is it their financial action task force that has that 40+9 recommendations? Is there a way to maybe incorporate this into that entity with the understanding there of how much we're talking about in terms of potential revenue, and therefore that certainly could compensate for taking on that added burden on the part of that institution? Where would you begin? And first, what would be the practical problems with establishing such a platform? And second, what would be the political problems maybe in doing it?
Right. If I could, I will be doing this in the near future at the International Anti-Corruption Academy to engage in concrete collective actions against lack of integrity, including in trade. So the answer to your question is all of the above. GFI and other NGOs are engaged in this. The OECD is focused on that. There are UN conventions against transnational organized crime, against terrorism finance, and against corruption that have relevant provisions that all countries on the planet are bound by. So you have the handles to do all this, and what you can do then with the incentive or revenue raising and better governance, and therefore development, foreign investment, and all the things, the good stuff that comes after this, you provide the incentives for integrity. You bring all of the actors together, they contribute their brains and their data, you do the analysis, you feed it back, you turn the lights on. That's why I was saying that the answer is within reach.
Other participants in the panel?
Since 9/11, either myself or the people that worked for me in the group that I managed visited 40 countries on behalf of Commissioner Bonner, who was in charge of customs at the time, and we were trying to extend our borders out with the Container Security Initiative. Of the countries that we visited, and some of these were former Soviet countries, every single person we demonstrated the program to, where do we get a copy of this? And I had permission to give this to the law enforcement people, okay? And we often made it available. Now, they got the program, we handed it, we owned the program, so we were able to give it to them. We had countries that don't give us anything. The Netherlands wanted to hand us a disk, and actually did hand us a disk, and said, here's our data. We couldn't go back to our organization. The programmers, they wanted the Netherlands to pay for the processing of the data. When we had funding, we were able to take this data and do it. The biggest problem is going to be that when you have a country, the United States has a different bookkeeping system than everywhere else in the customs world. That's a blanket statement. Most of the countries use a system called Asakuda. We don't use that. Their data is in one format. We don't accept it, according to our IT people, unless they present it in our format. It costs a lot of money to do this. We could just as easily have it done ourselves, and we did while we were funded. Now, when you go out to somebody, they want money to convert the data. These people just want to give it to us, as long as we give us their, we share with them. And I would be willing to bet we could extend this thing to 40 countries probably within very short order, if we had money to do it.
In the international community, the Financial Action Task Force makes things happen regarding anti-money laundering, counterterrorism, finance. One of the recommendations I have in the book and in my prepared statement is I believe we should go to our U.S. Department of Treasury, who heads up our U.S. government Financial Action Task Force delegation and ask them to study the possibility of having trade-based money laundering, having trade-based money laundering be the next FATF recommendation.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks. I thank the panel. I thank you for your continued focus on this. And I think later we can have some conversations between the members here who, some like Mr. French Hill, have got a little bit of understanding from being over in Treasury as to some of the bureaucratic impediments. Maybe we can come up, maybe we can keep a dialogue going, Mr. Chairman, with the panel as we try to work with some of the government agencies here on the next step. But thank you again for the hearing.
Agreed. Gentleman from